First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Caleb Stryker, and 3 hours ago, I came home from a war I wasn't sure I'd survive. I thought the first thing I'd see on American soil would be my wife's face, my kids' arms around my neck. Instead, it was a text. Don't come home. The locks are changed. The kids don't need you. It's over. Funny thing is, I've been shot at, blown up, watched friends bleed out in sand that still lives in my boots. None of that made my hands shake like that message did. I didn't call. I didn't beg. I just stared at the screen until my throat burned, typed 2 words, and hit send. As you wish. People think that sounds like surrender. Tell me, does it? The transport doors rattled shut behind me, trapping the heat like a fist around my throat. Georgia in July feels less like weather and more like punishment. I stepped onto the tarmac at Fort Moore with a pack that suddenly weighed nothing and a heart that suddenly weighed too much. My boots hit American soil. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Gratitude. Instead, I felt the leftover hum of war in my bones, waiting for the next order, the next threat. I'd told myself that once I saw my family, the noise in my head would quiet down. But there was no wife waiting behind a barricade, no kids waving homemade signs, just the same sun that had burned me overseas and an empty stretch of concrete. I tried not to read into it. Flights get delayed, traffic happens, life doesn't always pause for a homecoming. At least, that's what I told myself as I pulled out my phone for the first time in 9 months. The screen lit my face. The message gutted me. Don't come home. The locks are changed. The kids don't need you. It's over. If the sun was hot, that text was hotter, burning straight down to the part of me that had survived things I still don't talk about. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Soldiers funneled past me toward their waiting families, toward joy, toward normalcy, while I stood frozen in the middle of everyone else's reunion. That's when the shaking started. Not fear, not anger. Something colder. Something I'd felt right before breaching doors in Fallujah. The moment where everything unnecessary inside you drains out and only purpose remains. I typed back, as you wish. People romanticize those words. They shouldn't. I flagged down a cab, not to Brookhaven, not to the house I had apparently already been evicted from. I gave the driver an address in Midtown, Mara Vanderlin's office, and sat back as the city swallowed the road ahead. The driver made small talk. I didn't answer. I was too busy trying to swallow the truth that had just been shoved down my throat. Evelyn didn't want me home. My kids supposedly didn't want me either. And the life I'd been fighting for overseas had been dismantled without me. But shock only owns me for so long. By the time the cab reached the steel and glass tower where Mara practiced law, the shaking had stopped. My breathing had leveled. The mission had already begun. Inside her office, everything gleamed. Marble floors, sharp corners, expensive silence. Mara looked up from her laptop, blonde hair pulled tight, eyes colder than the AC kicking through the vents. "You weren't supposed to be back until next week," she said. "My timeline changed," I answered. "So did my marriage." She studied me for half a second, long enough to evaluate the damage, short enough to ignore it. "Tell me what happened." I handed her my phone. She read the message, then let out a low whistle. "That's brutal, even for divorce." "I need options," I said. "No," she corrected. "You need leverage." And she was right. Love was dead. Trust had been set on fire. All that was left were facts, assets, custody rights, and the battlefield of family law. I'd operated in worse terrain. For the next hour, Mara dissected my life with surgical efficiency, building a strategy as if she were mapping a route through hostile territory. When I told her Evelyn's text had come before I'd even stepped foot in the country, something in Mara sharpened. "She triggered a clause she didn't know existed," she said. "Her trust is vulnerable. We can freeze it." I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity, a weight settling into my chest that I recognized from missions where the stakes were life and death. Only this time, the lives were my children's, and the death was my marriage. By the time I signed the paperwork to initiate Phase 1, the sun had begun to set behind the skyline. Atlanta glowed gold and red like fire reflected off broken glass. Outside the building, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. "Caleb. This is Rowena from next door. I thought you already knew about the man staying at your house. I'm so sorry, dear." The humiliation hit harder than shrapnel. Evelyn hadn't just replaced me. She'd made sure everyone believed I'd abandoned them first. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then I slid the phone into my pocket and raised my hand for another cab. Pain could wait. Anger could wait. Self-pity could rot. Right now, I had a mission. And missions have no room for sentiment. By the time the sun climbed up over Atlanta, the city looked the way I felt. Too bright, too loud, too fast for someone who just had his life detonated without warning. I barely slept. The hotel AC kept kicking on, and every blast of cold air felt like another reminder that my house, my bed, my family weren't mine anymore. At 8:52 a.m., I stood in Mara Vanderlin's office again, watching the seconds on her wall clock tick toward 9. Mara typed rapidly, her expression smooth and surgical. She didn't look at me when she said, "Once this hits, Evelyn's trust is frozen. She'll call within minutes." "Let her," I said. Mara smirked. "You don't rattle easily, do you?" I didn't answer. The truth was, I was rattled, shaken in ways combat never managed. But rattled doesn't mean broken. Not for me. At 9:04 a.m. sharp, Mara hit submit. It was done. Somewhere in Brookhaven, Evelyn would try to access her trust and realize everything she'd planned, whatever the hell it was, had stopped moving. "Next step," Mara said, folding her hands, "is information. We need to know who this man is, the one staying in your home." "His name's Adrian Kestrel," I said, the taste of it bitter already. "Developer, real estate." "I'll dig into him," Mara replied. "But you'll want eyes on the house. Someone you trust." There was only one man who fit that description. I walked out to the balcony, dialed Reese Callahan, and waited for his voice. He picked up on the first ring. "Jesus, Caleb. I thought you weren't home till next week." "Plans changed," I said. "I need surveillance." There was a pause, not hesitation, calculation. "Your house?" "Yes." "You expecting trouble?" "I'm expecting answers," Reese exhaled. "Text me the new address. I'll start tonight." Reese. "Yeah? Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We don't know what we're walking into." The calls from Evelyn began at noon, one after another, vibrating my phone like a trapped hornet. I let every single one go to voicemail. By 3 p.m., the tone shifted. Messages turned sharp, hostile, frantic. "What did you do? You can't just disappear. Answer me." I didn't. I went for a walk instead, midtown sidewalks buzzing around me, people rushing to meetings, coffee shops spilling over with students, joggers weaving through traffic, all these strangers with lives intact. It felt surreal, like I was moving through someone else's country. At 10:37 p.m., my phone lit up again. But this time, it wasn't Evelyn. It was Reese. 3 photos. No captions at first. He didn't need them. Photo 1. My driveway. The midnight blue Audi parked like it belonged there. Photo 2. Adrian Kestrel, stepping out of the driver's seat. Expensive haircut, tailored suit, posture of a man who owns whatever he touches. Photo 3. The front door opening. Evelyn smiling, stepping into his arms. Not the awkward rush of new lovers, but the practiced ease of something long, comfortable, established. I stared at the photos until my chest went numb. Finally, a text landed beneath them. He's been there 6 times in 2 weeks. Kids act like they know him. Sorry, brother. Sorry. Everyone kept apologizing. Neighbors, lawyers, my best friend. Everyone except the one person who owed me the truth. For a moment, I let the pain hit, sharp, clean, merciless. Then, like I'd done 1,000 times in places far darker than Atlanta, I shut it off, boxed it, buried it. Pain is noise, and noise gets men killed. My life was gone. Fine. But my kids were not. I typed back to Reese, "Keep watching. I need everything." His response came fast, always. I set the phone on the bedside table, sat on the edge of the stiff hotel mattress, and breathed slow until my pulse obeyed me again. Tomorrow, Adrian and Evelyn could play house. Tonight, I allowed myself one moment, just one. Grief. Not for the marriage. That had died long before I got that text. But for the years I lost, the pictures I wasn't in, the children who thought I abandoned them because someone told them that lie often enough. Then I opened my eyes and the grief was gone, replaced by purpose. At 9 a.m. tomorrow, Evelyn would wake up in a world she didn't control anymore, and Adrian Kestrel had no idea he had just stepped into mine. The next morning came heavy and slow, like my body knew what my mind refused to say out loud. The life I'd left behind was already gone. I showered, shaved, and put on clean clothes, the kind of small rituals that remind you you're still human when everything else feels stripped to the bone. By 9 a.m., I was back in Mara Vanderlin's office. She already had documents spread across her desk like a general mapping a battlefield. "Your wife tried to move funds out of the trust this morning," Mara said without looking up. "Denied. Then she called her attorneys. They called me. They're displeased." "She'll live," I said. "That depends on how many more secrets she's been keeping." Mara slid a folder toward me. "Let's talk about the trust and your father-in-law." Evelyn's father, Charles Marshall, had been a calculating man. Old money New England, the type who wore tailored suits to Thanksgiving and had opinions about the acceptable temperature for red wine. He'd never trusted me. Military men made him nervous. Too poor, too mobile, too unpredictable. But he respected service, and strangely, he respected me. Before he died, he met with me privately. Told me Evelyn had a ruthless streak she inherited from him. Warned me their family wealth was a minefield. Then he made his offer. I sign a prenup limiting my access to Evelyn's family money, and he'd establish a separate trust to protect my own military earnings if our marriage ever fell apart. A backup plan for a disaster I never believed would happen. "Charles never filed the agreement with his main trust documents," Mara said, tapping the folder. "Which means Evelyn's attorneys didn't know it existed. You holding this is significant." I didn't respond. The memory of Charles' steady voice drifted through my mind, the gravity in his final warning. People don't become ruthless. They get tired of feeling small. Back then, I thought he meant himself. Now I wasn't so sure. Mara moved on to the next landmine. "About Adrian Kestrel. He's not just your wife's boyfriend." I figured. He's her ex, from law school. That one landed deeper than I expected. Not because Evelyn had loved before, everyone has a past, but because Adrian felt deliberate, familiar, convenient, a door she'd left cracked open for years. How long? I asked. Financial records suggest 16 to 18 months, maybe longer. 18 months. While I was overseas clearing buildings, watching friends bleed out, living in places where the sky itself felt hostile. My wife was rebuilding her life with someone else, someone safe, someone stable, someone present, someone who wasn't me. Mara continued speaking, but my mind had already gone somewhere darker. I'd spent years trying to convince myself that distance didn't matter, that my absence didn't wound the people I loved, that I could be both a father and a soldier, and that the world would somehow bend to make room for my choices. But people don't bend. They break. And Evelyn had broken long before she told me. A knock interrupted us. Mara opened the door, and Elias Drummond stepped inside, thin, quiet, eyes sharp in that way only former intelligence men have. He carried a manila envelope like it weighed more than it should. "I've got preliminary findings on Kestrel," he said, "and you're not going to like them." I braced myself. Just say it. Elias spread out documents on the table, parcels of land, banking transfers, school inquiries. He and Evelyn aren't just playing house, they're planning to relocate, Elias said. Costa Rica. I stared at the papers until the words blurred. Costa Rica. A new country. A new life. A place where U.S. custody laws meant nothing. When? I asked. A month. Maybe less. They'll leave once the kids start school. The room seemed to tilt, but my voice stayed steady. The kids don't know? No, Elias said. But based on the communications I accessed, Kestrel intends to make the move sound like a dream. A fresh start. He's done it before. Before? 3 previous women, Elias said. Husbands gone, children moved, finances drained. My throat tightened, not from shock, but from recognition. This wasn't an affair, it was a replacement strategy, a hostile takeover of my family. Mara folded her arms. He's removing you, Caleb, entirely. I didn't flinch, but something inside me cracked, a soundless fracture, not pain this time, not grief, focus, cold, razor-sharp focus. They think I'm out of the picture, I said quietly, that I won't fight. Elias studied me. Will you? I met his eyes. You know I will. As I left Mara's office, my phone buzzed. A text from Reese. We need to meet. Usual place. It's big. The usual place was a diner off Highway 78, all chipped countertops and aging vinyl booths. The kind of place where soldiers and ex-soldiers sit with their backs to the wall out of habit. Reese was already there, posture ramrod straight. I sat opposite him. How bad? I asked. He pushed a USB drive across the table. You're not dealing with a simple affair, he said. Kestrel isn't planning to take your wife. He's planning to take your family, your assets, and vanish across a border. I didn't touch the drive, not yet. And my kids? I asked. Reese's jaw flexed. He's working hard to win them. Lila seems taken in. Joss, not so much. He looks angry, confused, like he's trying to protect something he doesn't understand. A pause. Heavy. Thick. Then Reese added, Caleb, this man is not just replacing you. He's conditioning them. That was the climax of the chapter. The moment something old and dangerous inside me woke up. A soldier's instinct. A father's instinct. A man's refusal to be erased. I picked up the USB drive. Then we changed the plan, I said. Reese nodded slowly. Whatever you're about to do, remember who you are. I stood, sliding the drive into my pocket. That's exactly what they're hoping I forget. I hit the driveway of the house I used to call home just after sunset. Brookhaven was quiet in that curated, upper-class way. Lawns trimmed within an inch of their lives. Soft porch lights glowing like nothing bad ever happened here. The kind of neighborhood people choose when they want to pretend the world is gentle. I stood on the curb for a long moment, breathing in the familiar scent of magnolia and hot pavement, letting the weight of it settle. This place was supposed to be my refuge. Instead, it had become a crime scene I wasn't sure I wanted to step into. But I did. Reese had slipped me a working key, despite Evelyn telling the world she'd changed the locks. Maybe she had. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe the goddamn house just wasn't finished kicking me yet. The key turned without resistance. I stepped inside. The first thing that hit me wasn't the absence of noise. It was the absence of me. Our old leather couch, gone, replaced with something cold, angular, slate gray. The family photos that once covered the entry wall, wiped clean, replaced with abstract art so soulless, I almost laughed. Every room I passed felt staged, curated for someone else's life. Adrian's life. The life he'd been rehearsing while I was thousands of miles away. I walked through the house like a ghost visiting his own funeral. In the home office, the room Evelyn once refused to let me repaint because it felt like us, I found the first real truth of the night. A painting hung slightly off-center. That wasn't Evelyn. She was meticulous, surgical. So I moved it. Behind it was the small wall safe I'd installed years ago, combinations the same. My son's birthday. Inside, my grandfather's medals, a few service documents, and a sealed envelope I never intended to open unless the world forced my hand. Tonight, the world had kicked the door in. I took only the envelope, not the medals, not the history. Those belonged to a better version of me. As I slipped it into my jacket, something on the desk caught my eye, rolled paper, bound with a blue ribbon. Architectural plans. I unrolled them, and the air left my lungs. A blueprint connecting my house to Adrian Kestrel's. Walls removed, yards merged, a unified estate. Dated 14 months ago. 4 months into my last deployment. He wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He wasn't just replacing me. He was annexing my life. A takeover. Clean, efficient, quiet. I took photos of every page, each one a nail in the coffin of any illusion that this was a simple affair. Then I kept moving, because standing still felt like drowning. I went upstairs. Joss's room stopped me cold. It was the last familiar thing in the whole house. Still messy, still layered in sports gear and posters. Still him. On his desk sat a framed picture of the two of us from a fishing trip 3 years ago. Sunburned faces, bad haircuts, matching grins. One picture, just one, and he kept it. I wasn't erased from his world, not yet. Lila's room was different, repainted, redesigned, too mature for 14. It had Adrian's fingerprints all over it. Sleek decor, expensive textures, a curated life she didn't choose. A photo on her bulletin board grabbed my attention. Evelyn, Lila, and Kestrel at a ski resort. The kind of picture families take when they want the world to see their happiness. Families. I backed out of her room, my pulse building into a low, steady drumbeat. This house wasn't mine anymore, but the kids still were. Downstairs, I paused by the kitchen. Keys lay neatly on the marble countertop, the ones Evelyn claimed no longer worked. I placed the key Reese gave me beside them. A small, silent message. You didn't lock me out. You just forgot who I am. As I turned to leave, Headlights washed across the living room through the open blinds. I slipped out the back before anyone saw me. The night air felt colder now, sharper, like the city was listening. The next morning, I met Elias Drummond at a small office space he rented near Buckhead. He looked like he'd already lived 3 lives since sunrise. Tie loose, glasses perched low, manila folders stacked high. "What did you find?" I asked. He pushed a single file toward me. "Enough." Inside were documents, partnership dissolutions, sudden asset transfers, inconsistent valuations. Whispers of financial crime stitched together by a man who understood systems better than law. "Caleb," Elias said, "Kestrel doesn't date women. He targets them. Wealthy ones. Ones with husbands who travel. He becomes the confidant, the savior, then the advisor. And by the time they realize who he is, he's cleaned them out." My jaw tightened. "And Evelyn?" "He's already in deep. She moved $1.2 million from her trust into his Costa Rica development." My voice came out flat. "The development that doesn't exist." He nodded. I stared at the documents, but all I saw was Lila's smile in that ski photo, Joss's framed picture, Evelyn leaning into Adrian's chest like she belonged there, like she hadn't once belonged with me. "What else?" I asked. Elias hesitated. "We found purchase records for your property's neighbor lot, under one of Kestrel's shell companies. Bought 6 months ago." 6 months ago. Before the text, before the locks, before the lie that my kids didn't want me. He wasn't stealing my wife. He was absorbing my family. "He wants everything," I said quietly. Elias nodded. "And he usually gets it." I closed the file. Not this time. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from Reese. "We need access to the house again. Tonight. They'll be at a charity gala. Kids at the lake house. Say the word." I typed back. "Say less. I'm coming." Elias studied me, reading what was written in my posture, my breathing, my voice. "Caleb, whatever you're planning, it's necessary. Just make sure you don't cross a line you can't uncross." I looked him dead in the eye. He crossed it when he stepped into my home. And as I walked out, one truth settled in my chest like a stone dropped into deep water. The soldier in me was awake now, and no one was prepared for what that meant. I walked into Mara Vanderlin's conference room the next afternoon with the same mindset I carried into hostile villages overseas, calm, alert, already braced for whatever waited behind enemy lines. Evelyn sat across the table, posture perfect, expression carved from cold stone. Beside her were 2 attorneys, including the overly ambitious Casper Holland, who puffed himself up like he knew what it meant to be dangerous. He didn't. Mara sat beside me, relaxed in a way that usually meant she was sharpening a blade no one else could see. Rutherford, Evelyn's senior attorney, cleared his throat. "Your client's actions are unlawful. The trust freeze is retaliatory and constitutes financial abuse." Mara smiled without warmth. Mrs. Marshall triggered the clause herself by sending that message while Mr. Stryker was en route to U.S. soil. He merely exercised the legal options available. Evelyn's jaw ticked. "You weren't supposed to be home until next week." It was the first time she'd spoken directly to me since everything blew apart. "Deployment schedules change," I said. "Apparently, so do marriages." She flinched, barely. But I saw it. Rutherford redirected. "Let's stay on task. We want immediate release of the trust and a clean division of assets." "Before we move on," Mara said, "Mr. Stryker brought additional documents we'd like to review collectively." I slid a folder across the table. Evelyn frowned, opening it. The color drained from her face. "What is this?" she whispered. "Property records," I said. "Costa Rica, transfer timelines, school enrollment inquiries." Rutherford reached for the pages. "This is absurd. Vacation homes aren't—" "She wasn't purchasing a vacation home," Mara said. "She was being prepared to relocate, permanently, with the children, without Mr. Stryker's knowledge." Evelyn's voice cracked. "No. Adrian said, he told me it was a retirement home, a new start." I leaned forward. "And did he tell you the property you purchased doesn't exist? That the development is a facade he's used to drain other women before you?" Her breath stuttered. Casper Holland shifted in his seat, visibly out of his depth. Time to cut deeper. "I have 2 conditions before I unfreeze the trust," I said. "First, the kids remain in Atlanta through the school year. No international moves without court oversight." Rutherford nodded quickly. "Reasonable." Evelyn swallowed. "And the second?" I slid another envelope across the table, the one from her father, sealed all these years. She opened it. Her face went white. This can't be real." "It's notarized, signed by your father," I said. "He created a protective trust for my earnings, not out of generosity, for insurance. He didn't trust you not to weaponize money in a divorce." Her hands trembled. The humiliation hit her full force now. Evelyn Marshall, who built her career on control, had been outplayed by her own father and her own choices. "You lied to the kids," I said quietly. "Told them I abandoned them, that I didn't want a goodbye, that I chose deployments over them." She looked up at me, really looked, for the first time in years. Shame rippled through her expression. "I was trying to protect them," she whispered. "No," I said. "You were trying to protect yourself. The truth hurt, so you replaced it." The room went silent. Even the attorneys didn't dare interrupt. "I want you to tell them the truth," I added. "All of it. Then we can talk terms." Her voice barely rose above a breath. "If I refuse, then this," I tapped her father's agreement, "goes to the trust administrators, and your entire financial foundation is exposed." Evelyn folded, not out of fear, but out of defeat. "Fine," she said. "I'll tell them. I'll make it right." But her eyes shimmered, not with anger, but with something closer to grief. For the marriage she broke. For the children she dragged into it. For the version of herself she couldn't undo. That evening, I sat alone in my hotel room, letting the silence settle around me like dust. My phone buzzed. A message from Joss. "Mom told us the truth. Why didn't you call? Why didn't you fight for us?" My throat tightened. "I needed to be sure I could stay in your lives before making promises," I typed. "But I never left you. Not once." He replied almost instantly. "Are you home for good?" "Yes. No more deployments." A long pause. "Lila's mad at Mom. She won't come out of her room. Tell her I'll see both of you this weekend. My place. You have a place? I will by Saturday." I set the phone down, feeling something I hadn't felt since before the war. Fragile hope. That hope lasted exactly 40 minutes. A quiet knock came at the door. When I opened it, Lila stood there, eyes red, face streaked with dried tears, shoulders shivering in a way she tried desperately to hide. "Mom doesn't know I'm here," she blurted. "Joss helped me get out." My heart dropped. I pulled her inside. "Lila, you can't just disappear like that, sweetheart. What's wrong?" She looked up at me, voice breaking. "Why didn't you fight for us? You just vanished. Mom said you didn't want goodbye, that you didn't care." "I never said that," I whispered. Her lip trembled. Adrian said it too. My blood froze. What else did he say? She hesitated. Then, he said Joss needs to man up, that we should stop missing you. Last week, he grabbed Joss's arm, hard. Joss still has bruises. The rage that hit me then wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was cold, precise, lethal. The kind of rage that kept men alive on foreign soil and buried the ones who underestimated it. Did your mom see the bruises? I asked. No. Joss begged me not to tell her. He said it would only make everything worse. I closed my eyes, steadying my breath the way I used to before breaching a door overseas. This changed everything. I knelt in front of Leela. Listen to me. Tomorrow, everything shifts. But tonight, you need to go home. You need to be safe. No, she said. I want to stay with you. My chest twisted. God, I wanted to say yes. To take her in my arms and never let her go again. But this wasn't the moment for instinct. It was the moment for strategy. I will fight for you, I whispered. For you and your brother. I promise. But right now you need to go back before your mom panics. Her chin quivered, but she nodded. I called Reese. 20 minutes later, he escorted her discreetly back into the neighborhood through a blind spot in the security cams. Once she was safe, I made one final call to Mara. We accelerate, I said. She exhaled sharply. What happened? Kestrel put his hands on my son. This isn't just fraud anymore. This is protection. There was a long pause. What do you need from me? She asked. Everything. And as I hung up, one truth settled cold and clear. Kestrel hadn't just crossed a line. He'd stepped into open combat, and I was done giving warnings. The next morning, Atlanta felt sharper, like the city itself sensed something was about to break open. I woke before dawn, mind already running, body already braced. There's a kind of quiet that comes over you before a confrontation. The same calm I knew before breaching enemy compounds overseas. I hadn't felt it in years. Now it was back. At 8:59 a.m., I stepped into the private elevator of Kestrel Development's tower. Marble floors, chrome surfaces polished within an inch of their lives, panoramic windows showing Atlanta glittering beneath us. All of it designed to make a man feel small. Unfortunately for Adrian Kestrel, I've never been easily impressed. His assistant ushered me into his executive office. The man himself stood behind his desk, suit immaculate, smile practiced. He extended a hand like we were old colleagues. Caleb, he said warmly. Unexpected, but I appreciate the direct approach. I didn't take his hand. You and I need to talk, I said. He gestured to a leather chair. Please, sit. I stayed standing. He adjusted his smile. Very well. What's on your mind? You have my wife, I said plainly. You have my house. You've had access to my kids. I understand the picture you're trying to paint. His expression flickered. Not guilt, not shame, just mild annoyance. Evelyn made her choice, and your children... Don't finish that sentence, I warned quietly. He paused. Good. At least the man had instincts. I'm not here to fight the inevitable, I continued. I'm here to propose a clean exit for everyone. That got his attention. His shoulders softened a fraction. Go on. I'll sign the divorce terms. I'll sign over my share of the house. I won't contest your relationship with Evelyn. The words tasted like poison, but I forced them out evenly. In exchange, I want guaranteed access to my kids and a reasonable settlement. He frowned. Settlement? $2 million. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. That's excessive. It's cheaper than litigation, I said. And faster. Your timeline seems urgent. That hit him. Not deeply, but enough to break the surface. Why the sudden change of heart? He asked. Military teaches you not to fight battles you can't win. And do you think you can't win this one? No, I said. I think this one isn't worth fighting. A lie, delivered flawlessly. For a moment, he believed me. I watched it happen, the calculation, the greed sharpening, the confidence returning. He thought I was broken, that the soldier in me was dead. Perfect. I'll present this to Evelyn, he said. We'll respond by tomorrow. 24 hours, I replied. After that, the offer expires. He extended his hand again. This time, I shook it, because shaking someone's hand tells you far more than avoiding it. His grip was firm, controlled, practiced. The grip of a man who believed he had already won. I left without another word. What Adrian didn't know was that his office had been visited the night before by Elias Drummond and a building maintenance tech who owed Reese a favor. 2 audio devices, a motion-triggered packet sniffer wired into his VoIP line, and a cloud-mirroring script were now sitting behind that polished drywall. Every word he said next would belong to me. By noon, the first recording came through. Mara and I sat in her office, listening through earbuds, the volume low, as Adrian called Evelyn. He's desperate, Adrian said, voice smooth. This offer is ideal. We can wrap it all quickly and be out of the country before winter. Before winter. Faster than even Elias predicted. Evelyn's voice came through tight, uncertain. It feels too easy, Adrian. You don't know Caleb. He doesn't give up. He's a soldier, Adrian replied. He's not built for these kinds of games. He's out of his depth. Mara raised an eyebrow. He really doesn't know you. I kept listening. What about the kids? Evelyn asked. Caleb will contest any international move. He won't have time, Adrian said. Once we're settled in Costa Rica, the courts won't matter, and by then the kids will prefer our situation anyway. My vision narrowed. He was planning to steal my children, not metaphorically, literally. Trust me, Mel, he said. Everything is falling into place. Mara paused the audio. We have what we need: fraud, conspiracy, custody violations. Get him in a room and he'll dig his own grave. That's not what I want, I said quietly. She looked at me. Then what do you want? To protect my kids and to make sure Evelyn sees exactly who she was about to follow. Mara leaned back. You mean warn her? I mean show her. She sighed, but there was admiration in it. I'll arrange the meeting. That night I tried to rest. I couldn't. My mind kept replaying Lila's small, shaking voice. He grabbed Joss's arm, the bruises, the fear she tried to hide. Then, just past 11, there was a knock, soft, fragile. It was Lila. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy, her shoulders hunched like she was bracing for impact. Dad, her voice cracked. Is Adrian going to hurt us again? I pulled her into the room and held her. She trembled the way soldiers tremble after walking out of explosions, like every nerve still expects more pain. No, I whispered. I won't let him touch you again. She stepped back, wiping her cheeks. Mom says Adrian loves us. He only gets upset because we don't listen. My jaw flexed, hard. That's not love, I said. That's control. And it ends tomorrow. She nodded, trying to believe me, trying to trust me again after years of distance and lies she was fed in my absence. Go home now. I promise you, everything changes in the morning. Promise? On my life, Reese appeared minutes later, escorting her safely back without being seen. When I closed the door behind them, the calm washed over me again. The same calm I felt before firefights, before ambushes, before violence that couldn't be undone. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., Adrian Kestrel thought he'd be cementing his victory. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I would be ending him, not with fists, not with bullets, with truth. And truth cuts deeper than any weapon I've ever held. I arrived at Mara Vanderlin's conference suite at 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes early, because soldiers don't show up late to decisive battles. The whole floor smelled like polished steel and cold ambition, fitting, considering what was about to unfold. Adrian Kestrel was already there. He stood at the head of the long glass table like he owned the room, wearing that smug half-smile he probably practiced in the mirror. Two of his attorneys flanked him, both expensive, both already sweating. He extended a hand when I entered. I didn't take it. "Mr. Stryker," he said, plastering on his politician's charm, "looking forward to finalizing things today." "You won't be," I said. His smile tightened, uncertain for a flicker of a second. Good. He should have been afraid. Mara entered next, crisp and composed, followed by a man in a conservative suit carrying a leather folder. Adrian turned, annoyed. "And who is—" "Agent Lincoln Crowell, FBI," the man said, placing his credentials on the table with deliberate calm. "I'm here as an observer." Adrian's attorneys paled. Casper Holland, Evelyn's overeager junior counsel, visibly swallowed. Right on cue, Evelyn rushed in, breath unsteady, eyes darting between me and the federal badge blinking under fluorescent light. "What is going on?" she asked. "You'll find out," Mara said. I sat. Everyone else followed. Mara slid folders to each person at the table, her nails tapping the covers like she was releasing something venomous. "These materials," she said, "document a pattern of securities fraud, wire fraud, shell company manipulation, and interstate conspiracy going back 7 years. Adrian scoffed. "This is garbage, manufactured. A desperate attempt to—" I cut him off. "Sit down, Adrian. You're done." His eyes narrowed, a crack in the armor. Agent Crowell spoke next. "Mr. Kestrel, the Bureau has been investigating irregularities in your development firms for 18 months. Mr. Stryker's evidence helped confirm several outstanding concerns." Evelyn's head snapped toward Adrian. "What evidence? What concerns?" I didn't look at her yet. This wasn't her moment. I pushed another folder across the table, this one filled with transcripts and audio clips pulled from Adrian's own office. "This," I said, "is you. In your own words." Mara hit play. Adrian's voice filled the room, smooth and oily. "He's desperate. This offer is ideal. We can wrap everything up quickly and be out of the country before winter. Once we're settled in Costa Rica, the courts won't matter." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. "Costa Rica," she whispered. "You told me it was a vacation home. You said, Adrian, you said it was our future." He stiffened. "Mel, listen." Agent Crowell interrupted, flat and clinical. "There is no development in Costa Rica. The land is undeveloped swamp. The permits were never approved." The Fokawia silence that followed felt like gravity thickening. Then I delivered the blow that changed everything. "That's not all," I said, sliding a final photo across the table. "This is my son." A picture of Joss's arm, purple, smeared with finger-shaped bruises, stared back at everyone. Evelyn looked at it, blinked, then looked again like her brain refused to process what her eyes showed. What is this?" she whispered. I kept my voice level. "Thursday night. You were out." Adrian forced his way into Joss's room. My son fought back. Adrian grabbed him. "No," Evelyn said, shaking her head violently. "No, Adrian would never. He promised me. Adrian slammed a hand on the table. He was being disrespectful. I barely touched him. The slap Evelyn delivered echoed like a gunshot. Her palm cracked across Adrian's face, snapping his head sideways. The room froze. Attorneys, FBI agent, even Mara, everyone held still. "You hurt my son," she said, voice shaking with something sharp and primal. "You lied to me. You used me. You used my children." Adrian sputtered, reaching for whatever scraps of control he thought he still had. "Mel, listen. This is all being twisted. He's manipulating—" "No," she said. "You are." Agent Crowell stood. "Mr. Kestrel, you'll need to come with us." 2 additional agents stepped into the room, the silent insurance policy Mara and I expected. They cuffed him smoothly, professionally, like they'd done it before. As they led him out, Adrian twisted to glare at me, eyes burning with hatred. "This isn't over, Stryker." "It is," I said. "You just don't know it yet." When he was gone, the room felt lighter in the way a battlefield feels after the dust settles, quiet, raw, unsteady. Evelyn sat down hard. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Caleb, after everything I did to you, why would you protect me from him?" I finally looked at her. Not the way I once did, not with love or longing, but with ache, with truth. "I didn't protect you," I said. "I protected our kids. You were collateral." Her breath hitched, wounded, ashamed. Mara packed her files. The attorneys disappeared one by one. Even Agent Crowell offered a respectful nod before leaving. When the door finally clicked shut, only Evelyn and I remained. "What happens now?" she asked, voice thin. "Now," I said, standing, "you tell the kids the whole truth. Every lie you fed them. Every choice you made. You fix what you broke." She swallowed hard. "And after that?" "After that," I said, walking toward the door, "we build whatever co-parenting relationship we can manage." She looked at me like she already knew the answer to the question she shouldn't ask. But she asked anyway. "Did you ever love me? Or was I just a mission you were assigned?" I paused at the doorway. "I loved you enough to let you go when I thought you wanted something else," I said. "And I loved you enough to stop you when I realized you were walking into something dangerous." She lowered her eyes. "But not enough to forgive me." "No," I said quietly. "Not enough for that." Then I left her in the silence she created. The silence that would follow her long after the echoes of Adrian's arrest faded. And for the first time since coming home, I felt the ground steady under my feet. 3 weeks after the reckoning, Atlanta felt different. Maybe it was the fall air settling in, or maybe it was just me, finally breathing without expecting the next blow. Adrian Kestrel was gone. Not dead. Worse, indicted. His face had been plastered everywhere. Local news, business segments, investigative reports. The visionary developer now labeled what he'd always been, a parasite with expensive suits and empty promises. The FBI froze every one of his accounts. Victims surfaced across 3 states. The Costa Rica fantasy collapsed in days. He'd built an empire on sand. All I did was give the tide a little push. Evelyn moved out of our old house a week after his arrest. She found a modest apartment in Midtown, small, quiet, stripped of all the pretension she used to wear like armor. The house we shared sat empty now, locked in legal limbo, its silence echoing with everything we didn't become. The trust fund was mostly recovered. Not all of it. Some damage couldn't be undone, no matter how fast the lawyers moved. As for me, I bought a place 15 minutes from the kids' school. A 4-bedroom craftsman at the edge of a wooded neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, just warm, real. The kind of place where you can breathe without checking corners. I took a job with Titan Shield Security Consulting. The corporate world liked my resume even more than the military did. Within a month, I'd pulled 2 old Ranger buddies onto my team. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up in a barracks or a hotel room. I woke up in a home my kids were starting to claim as their own. On a crisp Saturday, I sat on the back deck watching Joss practice lacrosse drills, quick footwork, clean passes, determination etched into every movement. The kid had talent. Fire, too. He got that from me. Inside, Lila pretended to read while keeping the window cracked open so she could eavesdrop. She thought she was subtle. She wasn't. Joss stopped mid-drill. Mom says she's sorry. Like, a lot. It's getting annoying. I nodded. She has plenty to apologize for. Are you ever going to forgive her? He asked. Forgiveness. The word felt heavy, like gear I didn't want to carry anymore. Forgiving someone isn't simple, I said. I can work with her as your mom, but the marriage, that's gone. That seems harsh. Maybe, I said, but some things break in ways you can't fix. He looked down at his stick, twirling it absently. Mom said she got caught up with Kestrel because he made her feel important again. Said she forgot who she was. Fear makes people do things they regret, I said quietly. Doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. Joss hesitated. Do you feel bad for Kestrel? You know, with him going to prison? No, I said without blinking. He hurt you. He tried to steal our family. He gets what he deserves. Joss nodded. Yeah, that's fair. A beat passed. He shifted awkwardly. I wanted to tell you about the bruises, he said. I didn't think you'd care anymore. That one cut deeper than anything Evelyn ever did. I stepped closer. Joss, look at me. He raised his eyes. There is nothing that could ever make me stop caring about you or your sister. I will always protect you, always fight for you, always show up for you. Do you understand? He swallowed hard, eyes bright. Yeah, I do now. Before I could say more, Lila's voice called from inside. Dad, Mom's here. I exhaled, steadying myself. The battlefield had shifted, but some terrain still held danger. Evelyn stepped inside my house like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. Jeans, a soft sweater, almost no makeup. She looked human again, stripped of the polished attorney persona. More like the woman I met 12 years ago. Less like the one who shattered everything. I need to talk to your father alone, she told the kids. Go grab your bags. They disappeared upstairs, leaving us facing each other across a living room neither of us knew yet. You've done well here, she said, scanning the house. The kids seem comfortable. They are, she nodded. They're happier. Joss's grades are up. Lila's talking again. She paused, bracing. I owe you an apology, a real one. I kept my stance neutral. I let fear drive me, she said. Fear of being alone. Fear of waiting for you to come home in a body bag. Fear that I didn't matter to you anymore. Adrian made me feel seen again, and I let that blind me. Her voice cracked. I betrayed you. Betrayed our kids. And you still kept us from falling into something worse. I don't deserve that kind of mercy. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for them. You were collateral. She flinched but nodded. I know. We stood in silence until the kids came downstairs, bags slung over shoulders. They hugged her goodbye, then headed out to the truck. Evelyn lingered by the door. I'll regret what I did for the rest of my life, she whispered. That's yours to carry, I said. Not mine. She touched the doorframe like the house itself held an answer. "I hope you find something better," she said. I didn't reply. Some truths don't need words. Later that night, after dinner and board games, the kids asleep in their rooms down the hall, I sat out on the deck with a glass of whiskey. The air was cool, quiet. My phone buzzed. "Wyatt, how'd it go with Evelyn?" I typed back. "As expected, apologies, regrets. And you? Still holding the line? Some betrayals can't be undone." He called immediately. "You know forgiveness isn't just for her, right? It's for you." "I don't need forgiveness," I said. "I need clarity." "Caleb," he said, voice warm but firm, "you're sitting alone on your porch at midnight with whiskey. That's not clarity. That's limbo." I laughed under my breath despite myself. "Maybe." "You completed the mission," he said. "Now you need a new one. The war's over. Time to come home for real." After we hung up, I sat there watching the moon slip behind the trees. He was right. The rage that had powered me these past weeks was fading, leaving space I didn't know what to fill with. The soldier in me had done his job. Now the man had to figure out what came next. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a door, cracked open, waiting. 6 months later, the dust had finally settled. The divorce was finalized without a single courtroom blowout, which felt like a miracle considering where we started. The custody agreement held steady, clean, balanced, predictable. The kids were thriving under the stability. And for the first time in years, it felt like the ground under us wasn't shifting. Adrian Kestrel took a plea deal, 8 years in federal prison, restitution payments that would follow him longer than the sentence itself. Every time his name came up online, and it still did, in waves, he looked smaller, like a man crushed under the weight of his own schemes. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't mourn it either. It was simply the world finally seeing him as I had, a predator hiding behind charm and tailored suits. My consulting firm had grown faster than I expected. Titan Shield pulled in 2 more Rangers, men who understood pressure and loyalty the way civilians rarely do. We built something solid, something that felt like purpose without gunfire or sandstorms, something that wasn't war. So, on a warm spring afternoon, I stood on the sidelines of the state lacrosse championship, the field buzzing with energy. Joss, wearing number 17, moved with confidence I'd never seen in him before. The kid had found himself again. Maybe we all had. Beside me, Lila cheered loudly, far louder than someone her size should be capable of. On her other side, Evelyn kept a respectful distance, present but not close, supportive but not pretending. We had become a quiet, working version of family, broken pieces rearranged into something functional. "Your son has great stick skills," a voice said beside me. I turned to see a woman, athletic build, curly brown hair, a Northwestern windbreaker. She held a clipboard and wore a recruiter's badge. "He works hard at it," I said. "He's got natural instincts," she replied. "Scholarship-level instincts." She offered her hand. "Vanessa Carlisle, Northwestern Athletics." "Caleb Stryker," I said. "Number 17 is mine." We talked through the first half. Her knowledge of the game was sharp, technical, but she had an easy warmth that made the conversation feel lighter than anything I'd allowed myself in months. When halftime hit, Lila tugged my sleeve. "Dad, I'm getting hot chocolate. Want water?" "Yeah," I said, handing her a few dollars. Vanessa glanced toward Evelyn. "Can I get you anything, Ms.?" Evelyn blinked. "Stanford, and no, thank you." "Mom," Lila called. Come help me carry stuff." The not-so-subtle matchmaking made Vanessa laugh. Smart kid, obvious, but smart. "Subtlety isn't our strong suit," I said. "Well," she said, smiling, "if you're ever free for coffee, I'd love to talk more about your son's future. And maybe other things too." She handed me her card. Our fingers brushed. Something small but unmistakable clicked into place. Before I could say anything, the second half started. After Joss scored the winning goal in a nail-biter finish, the celebration spilled into a dinner at his favorite burger place. Evelyn bowed out gracefully. "Work," she said, but I knew it was also space. The right kind of space. During fries and milkshakes, Joss smirked at me. "Dad, that recruiter totally gave you her number." "For athletics," I said. "Sure," he said, grinning. "Athletics." Lila pointed a fry at me like a sword. "You should call her. She's pretty. And smart. And she laughed at your jokes." "I'll consider it," I said. Later that evening, after dropping them at Evelyn's, I drove back to my house. Quiet, warm, mine. I placed Vanessa's card on my desk, not calling, not throwing it away, just letting the idea exist. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Trevor can't stop talking about the Northwestern recruiter. He says she might be the one. Just warning you, he's planning your wedding." I couldn't help the laugh that escaped. "Thanks for the heads up. I'll manage his expectations." She replied almost instantly. "You deserve happiness, Caleb. Truly." I stared at the words longer than I expected. "So do the kids. Thank you for today." That was all I sent. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. We weren't enemies anymore. We weren't partners either. We were something in between. The war was over. The battlefield was finally quiet. The next morning, I laced up my running shoes before dawn. When I passed my desk, the business card caught my eye. Clean, simple, waiting. I hesitated, then slipped it into my wallet. Not a promise, not a decision. Just permission. Outside, the sun was lifting over the rooftops, pale gold catching on the moving clouds. The kind of morning that felt like a beginning, not a continuation. As I started down the street, I thought about the message that detonated my life the moment I came home. Don't bother coming. The locks are changed. The kids don't want you. It's over. And my reply, the two words that weren't surrender but declaration. As you wish. Back then, it meant I was ready for war. Now it meant something else. I was ready for peace.